is the Sinister Six's sixth member in Spider-Man No Way Home? The Marvel Cinematic Universe is about to get a whole lot more sinister. With your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man's secret identity exposed, Peter Parker's gonna have his hands full this winter in Spider-Man No Way Home. After all, as the old theme song goes, Spider-Man does whatever a spider can. In the face of being doxxed, Doctor Strange gives no fucks. Look out, here comes the multiverse. Anyway, the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer gave us a taste of what's to come for Peter Parker, MJ, Ned, and the rest of the gang. Namely, a fissure in reality courtesy of a spell gone awry from Doctor Strange. And while we have plenty of theories about Doctor Strange involving everyone from the Skrulls to Mephisto, we're going to focus on a more immediate threat to old Webhead, namely the Sinister Six. So the trailer seemingly tipped its hand about 5 of the members of this iconic group of Spider-Man baddies, but a big question mark remains around its 6th and final member. Now we're going to try and investigate to get to the bottom of this on today's show, and as always, if you prefer to read all about it, Eric Diaz has you covered over on Nerdist.com. And while this is speculation for the time being, if we're right about this, that could be considered a spoiler, so if you're worried about that kind of thing, well, make like Doctor Strange and get nice and cozy in your living room instead. Okay, let's get into it, shall we? Now, as we know from the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer, Peter Parker tries to fix his problems with black magic, but he interrupts Doctor Strange's concentration while he's casting a spell, which in turn leads to a rift in reality, involving members of the cinematic universe formerly known as the SPUMC to enter the MCU. In the trailer, we see iconic characters from the Tobey Maguire starring Spider-Man films and the Andrew Garfield starring Spider-Man films, but nary a Tobey or Andrew in sight, for now. Some of these characters are easy to spot, others are shrouded in darkness, and others are merely alluded to through sound effects and oblique visual effects. But it all points towards one group, the Sinister Six. So for those who don't know, the Sinister Six are a group of Spider-Man villains who realize that sometimes they need to work together to rid themselves of their pesky neighborhood Spider-Man once and for all. First appearing in 1964's Amazing Spider-Man Annual #1, the original Sinister Six was created by Dr. Octopus after he got dunked on so thoroughly and repeatedly by Peter Parker's alter ego that he realized he needed some help. The original lineup included Doc Ock, the Vulture, Electro, Kraven the Hunter, Mysterio, and Sandman. There have been countless other iterations over the years and offshoots of the core group, but the notion of Spider-Man's iconic rogues gallery teaming up to take him out remains one of the Spidey comics' most enduring tropes. In Spider-Man No Way Home, we can confirm at least 5 of these members. Jamie Foxx as Electro, but hopefully less preposterous than his portrayal in Amazing Spider-Man 2. Sandman, who we last saw in Spider-Man 3, fading to dust like this Peter Parker would years later. A blink and you'll miss it shot of what appears to be the Lizard, who we last saw in The Amazing Spider-Man. Presumably Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin based on the pumpkin bomb accompanied by a sinister laugh. And of course, Alfred Molina returning as Spider-Man 2's Dr. Octopus.
Hello, Peter.
Now, as I mentioned, this leaves us with a giant question mark surrounding the 6th and final member of this murderer's row of, well, murderers. So who could this mystery villain actually be? Let's run down some of the likeliest suspects and a couple of characters that feel like Mephisto red herrings. Let's begin with what I think is the likeliest candidate, and that is the Vulture. Michael Keaton's chilling version of Adrian Toomes previously went toe-to-toe with Tom Holland's Spider-Man in Spider-Man Homecoming. And although he already knows Spider-Man's true identity, he likely has a bone to pick with the Wallcrawler as well because he's currently cooling his heels in prison. With a personal connection to Spider-Man and an upcoming appearance in Morbius if it ever comes out, Vulture would not only make sense as an OG member of the comic book Sinister Six, but also give us an MCU villain to join the Raimiverse and Amazing Spider-Man holdovers as well. And speaking of MCU villains, when the Vulture went to prison, he also encountered someone who has a bone to pick with Spidey, and that is Mac Gargan, better known as the Scorpion. Played by Better Call Saul standout Michael Mando, Gargan alluded to putting together a group of friends and erstwhile allies who also have beef with Spidey. And while Gargan still needs a suit of armor to match the Scorpion tattoo on his neck, this could be a great way for them to build up another classic Spider-Man villain and give us at least one holdover from the Tom Holland movies as well, because let's face it, it's not gonna be Shocker. I love Bokeem Woodbine, but it's not gonna be Shocker. Next up, we have Kraven the Hunter, a character that looks like what Sigmund and Freud must see between the waking and dreaming world. He's one of Spider-Man's most enduring villains, despite the fact he dresses like a VHS cover of The Lion King. Kraven is a formidable foe who's literally buried Peter Parker alive before, and he's also an OG member of the Sinister Six, and that makes him a tempting choice to play that 6th mystery member, but Considering the fact that Sony's making a Kraven movie in their own universe starring Aaron Taylor Johnson, I highly doubt they're going to introduce the character here as this out-and-out villain when it feels like we're going to see him soon enough as an anti-hero instead. Now after that, let's talk about someone who I'm secretly rooting for as that sixth member, Mysterio. Now, I know what you're thinking, but Dan, didn't Quentin Beck die at the end of Spider-Man Far From Home? First of all, yes, he did. Second of all, that is your real voice. Or at least it seemed like Quentin Beck died. Because after all, he and his team managed to turn around a video package of Peter seemingly murdering Mysterio very quickly after that happened. And let's be real, the only person in Spider-Man's life that really stays dead, that's Uncle Ben. And while we could get an homage to the Spider-Man 4 that never was by seeing Bruce Campbell as this alternate reality Mysterio, it's far likelier that if Mysterio returns, we'll see that rumors of Quentin Beck's death were greatly exaggerated. And it turns out that he wasn't lying about that whole multiverse thing after all.
I'm sorry, you're saying there's a multiverse?
Next up, we have someone that nobody's ready for, Bonesaw.
Bonesaw is ready!
Just kidding, he's not gonna make it. R.I.P. Macho Man, we miss you every day, buddy. 3 minutes.
I got you for 3 minutes. You're going nowhere. I got you for 3 minutes.
While The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was legally a movie, it also included a scene at the very end teasing the arrival of the Sinister Six. Now, one member of that team that also made an appearance in the movie, who many fans are curious about his return, is Rhino, as played by Paul Giamatti. The muscle-bound mafioso was last seen throwing down with Spidey in a massive mech suit in Amazing Spider-Man 2, and he could potentially return to serve up even more silliness in the sequel, but let's be real, we'll likely see Paul Giamatti's character from Sideways in this movie before we see the Rhino again. Now, after that, we come to a character who was teased previously in Spider-Man Far From Home, and that is Chameleon. Remember that bearded dude from Nick Fury's crew that kept an eye on Peter Parker on his European vacation? He drove the bus at one point? Well, that's Dmitry Smerdyakov, a character in the comics better known as Chameleon, a master of disguise who uses high-tech gear to impersonate all manner of people in pursuit of committing crime and taking down Spider-Man. As an occasional member of the Sinister Six, he would certainly fit the bill nicely and allow for some fun fake-outs that are in the same vein as Mysterio but different enough so they feel new. But with that said, definitely a dark horse candidate. And last but not least, we come to a choice that could really throw fans for a loop, and that is Venom. That's right, folks, while we're used to seeing Eddie Brock chowing down on raw lobsters and street thugs' faces in equal measure, he could potentially appear as a Sinister Six member in Spider-Man No Way Home. We last saw Venom as a Spider-Man villain in Spider-Man 3 when the symbiote possessed Topher Grace, which was a choice. And considering how desperately fans and Sony want to put Tom Holland and Tom Hardy on the big screen together, I could see a universe where this happens. And if that is the case, I could imagine it being a Venom from another reality where he just so happens to look exactly like Tom Hardy's version, or it could maybe play out like the events of 1999's Peter Parker's Spider-Man number 12, in which Venom winds up beating the crap out of the Sinister Six himself and ultimately foiling their plans. But since Sony has their own plans for Venom and he's currently the biggest star of their universe of Spider-Man characters outside of the MCU, I do have my doubts they're going to follow through with a potentially confusing crossover like that, so sorry to burst your bubble, but it does seem like a long shot.
Hey, I'm sorry about Venom.
Now, regardless, whoever it does wind up being, they're going to give Peter Parker and Doctor Strange a major run for their money. Maybe they'll be able to enlist a pack of Peter Parkers from across the Spider-Verse to help save the day, but only time will tell, and we for one will be waiting with bated breath to find out what happens come December 17th. Anyway, folks, there you have it. Those are our best bets for who will and won't be the Sinister Sixth in Spider-Man No Way Home. In the meantime, though, tell us, who do you think this mystery villain will be? What do you want to see from Spider-Man No Way Home?
Pizza time.
Let us know in the comments below, and for the latest and greatest in the world of pop culture, stay tuned to Nerdist.com.